Hi guys, thanks for joining us today. We are Clean Digital, PPC agency based in Edinburgh, Scotland. Today, myself and Logan will be taking you through some top tips as we move through the Christmas period to help you run really impactful seasonal campaigns over Christmas and Black Friday as well.
Cool. We'll get started. So one of the first five key takeaways is pace weekly spending. With any campaign, if it's an event such as Black Friday, Christmas campaign, or if it's an Easter campaign, whatever the case is, you need to pace your spend accordingly so you don't overspend and over-deliver on the budget too early on in the event. But then also on the flip side, spend your budget effectively so that you can capitalize as much as possible on the traffic coming through to your website. So the main point here is plan accordingly. So obviously a lot of thinking needs to go into the budget pacing ahead of time, just so you're on top of it as much as you can be for the event. So the first example here is just in terms of appropriately pacing your spend for these periods where you might see some quite significant fluctuations in search volumes and demand and conversion rates. I've basically put together a brief example of if you were to run a campaign over December for your Christmas, search or shopping campaigns, just general activity in terms of an example budget plan, and then versus the actual, so you can keep track of where you're at and then ensure that you're pacing appropriately towards where you need to. And it gives you an option that if you do check in daily or a few times a week, if you are over or significantly under, you can then reforecast, recalculate, and then get your spend to where it needs to be. So for this example here, we have a month-to-date budget from the 1st to the 4th of £4,000. To spend 4.6K roughly in terms of pounds, so about £560 over budget. But as you can see, there's still many days left in the month to reforecast, recalculate, and just get your budget and your pacing in line with where it needs to be. A bit of common sense, I guess, but avoid blasting through the budget in the first few days. If you do front weight the budget, if that's in your plan, great. But if you do front weight maybe closer to the beginning of the period rather than the end, it gives you some room to overspend and then recalculate everything accordingly. This example, again, we have inputted some additional budgets for the days going to the mid-month period. Again, for December, if you're an e-commerce business, I imagine there'll be a delivery cutoff date around about the 19th, 20th of December. So in this example here, we have the budgets going down quite significantly. A bit of a severe example. Some businesses may not want to reduce their spend by that much, but it may be that search volume is gonna die off, and there's not going to be enough users searching, or you're not going to be able to fulfill the orders in time ahead of Christmas for them to get that delivery. So yeah, one thing that needs to be considered when planning out your budgets. But then if we're going back to the example here, month-to-date budget, £19,000, the actuals 21,000 roughly, with about 1.7K overspend. So not much room to reduce your budgets and make up for that overspend. However, in the days after Christmas, where you potentially would expect conversion rates and demand and general search volumes to increase after that, it does give you a bit of room to reforecast and plan that out again as well. So I guess the main message here is plan ahead, review daily, weekly. If you do need to make changes, make them sharp, short, quick, impactful changes. And then if you are over or significantly under your spend, it's probably an argument to check in daily just to ensure that everything is where it needs to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
If there is an anticipated rise in demand as you get closer to the period, so maybe closer to the delivery cutoff date, maybe plan accordingly for that. Have a bit of extra budget available just in case there's a mad rush of users who are buying last-minute gifts. I mentioned delivery cutoff date as well, but then another point here would be just having enough budget available. And in terms of stock, if there are stock issues, definitely consider that and maybe don't push certain products more so than others, so you can have a decent stock available for the entire period. So we're going to move on to key takeaway 2, which is maximize appeal with promos and extensions. So these will be promotional offers or extensions, so both on Google search and on shopping. The same can go for any platform really, but we've used Google Shopping and search for the example here. So yeah, again, don't be late. Give yourself enough time for setup and processing. This is the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. So always late, never run on time. So don't be him is the idea. So first off, promos. So if businesses use Google advertising, you can do search extensions and you can also do shopping promotions. So the search extensions, if we're looking at the screenshot here, allows you to choose language, currency, a monetary discount, a percentage discount, include the item, and then find a URL where you want to drive the user to on the website. So in this example, it could be the promotion or sale page on your website, or it could just be to the home page that you drive the user to. And you also have the option to use a promo code as well if you wanted to highlight that to the user, and then you can see that promo code in the ad. So if you just imagine an ad here, and then the promotional offer will be just below it, then the user can see that, and then that could improve your click-through rate because it's a nice enticing offer, and then they can then progress through the website, through the funnel, and then apply that code and checkout. The main message here, which is going to ram home throughout the whole webinar, I think, is just plan everything out ahead of time, give yourself enough time, avoid the additional stress over this period. And an important thing with promotions is, if you think about it, a lot of advertisers will be setting up promotions either on Google search, on shopping, on various other platforms. With such a large volume of advertisers and businesses doing this, it could take additional time for the system to process. So if you do set up your promotional offers a day ahead of, let's say if we use Black Friday example, if you set up your promotions last Thursday, they may not be processed and approved in time for it to run when you want it to. And then I guess on the other side, if for any given reason your promotion gets rejected, or you've entered something incorrectly in the promotion, you just don't have enough time to get that up and running. So definitely give yourself enough time. You can set them up anytime ahead of time, schedule a date. So as you can see here, for example, in the search promotion, you can schedule dates. So you can schedule any day ahead of time, schedule it for that period, end on time, and then you're good to go. So yeah, mentioned the monetary and percentage discounts. There's other cool features you can leverage, which are quite interesting on search and on shopping. One cool thing you can do on the search option is occasion. So there you can put either Christmas, you can put Black Friday, and then it'll just call that out in the ad itself. So the user's clear about what the promotion's for if it's outside one of these normal seasonal periods. So yeah, be sure to try and test it out if you haven't already. So moving on, here we have Google Shopping, so Merchant Center. So some of you may be aware of this already, especially if you're in e-commerce, you've got a shopping feed with your products. What we saw earlier was for search, but then again, if you are in e-commerce using shopping, definitely consider using shopping promotions. So here I gave a few screenshots of basically how that looked like to guide you a bit in terms of setting that up. It's a very simple process, but there's quite a few areas to consider when setting it up. So it may not be the clearest, so we're going to hopefully clear that up for you guys. So here we have in the promotion category, is it going to be an amount off, a percentage off, if it's a free gift, free shipping? I mean, the normal ones we would tend to use quite often at our end would be amount off or percent off. Yeah. And then within those, you can then select amount off. This is a monetary discount. You can buy a quantity of products and get a certain amount off. So if it's like, buy two, get one free, or buy two and get 50% off. Or if it's buy a quantity of products and get the same item at a discount rate. So there's a few different settings and options you can leverage to best suit what your promotion is going to be. But normally it tends to be either amount off or percent off in these situations. But again, if there's free shipping available, great. But usually that's maybe one of the normal USPs for any business out there. So once you select a type of promotion you're going to run on shopping, you then have to have a promotion title, a promotion ID. So the promotion title, you can write if it's Black Friday, buy 150 pounds worth of products, and then you get 50 pounds off. Then you can name that as a title. Promotion ID, you have to set it to basically the same as a title, but you can't have any special characters or spaces within that. So that's just how it's going to look like to you in the system. And then you have probably the juicy bit of this will be the products itself. So you can choose specific products on the website if it's just a small range of products or a small subset of products which are going to have the sale applicable to them, or you can apply products to specific products in your feed that have the promotion ID. So you define that within the feed. So there's a few options you can apply there, or if it's just general sale across all products on the website, you can apply that promotion to all products. And then that's probably the easiest one for you to set up. If you do choose the first or second setting here, you need to carry out a bit of work ahead of time to get that ready to go, or at least have your item IDs or whatever filter you're going to use to define which products the sale is applicable to. So this is probably the most important bit of the promotion. If you are running this for your business, or you're an advertiser running it for someone else's business, maybe clear that up ahead of time about exactly what the promotion applies to, because you don't want to be in a situation where you've applied it to all products and then it's only applicable to 3. So that would not be good at all. And then much like search, you have the option to enter a promo code. So if they can enter a promo code at checkout, be sure to include that there, and that will sit under the shopping ad, and it should show up quite clearly, and they can click on that and be aware that a promo code can be applied. And then last but not least, the end date. So within that, start on time, end on time, obviously very clear. Again, I guess one thing that could bring up some issues is if your Merchant Center account is in a different time zone to the time zone you're in. So just watch out for that. Obviously here we're in GMT, so as it shows in the screenshot, but if your account and you're running an ad in Australia or the United States, you have to consider the time range as well, just to ensure that you're not going past the time you should have ended, or you're not starting ahead of time when you should. Cool. So next we're moving on to ad copy and site link. In this example here, we've taken a Dyson vacuums and a screenshot from a search ad just to show you how you could basically structure your ad to best promote the offering over that period or the event. So in this case, you can amend ad copy to promote the, in this case, Black Friday event. You can then have a promotion extension, which would show like that. And they've selected Black Friday as the occasion. They have £100 off and a specific product, so that's great. And then what they've also done is layered in a site link extension, which they've basically put the headline, you put 2 lines of description, and then you can drive them to a specific page on the website. In this case, it would be the Dyson Black Friday promotional sale offers page. So yes, definitely consider including site links. It's definitely not needed, but it is recommended from just really getting your promotion out there, but also generally just kind of beefing out your ad, capturing larger real estate in the search engine results page. That's important for desktop, even more important for mobile, where that real estate is a lot smaller. You may have 1 or 2 ads at the top, and then you got to scroll down for the rest. So if you do capture that share of the market at the strong positions in the auctions, then that's definitely what would be recommended in this case, to capitalize as much as possible on the promotion. Tablet to some extent is important, but then again, the main device types will be desktop and mobile. Like I mentioned, you can do the search extensions, you can do the shopping promotions, but if you want to leverage another layer onto that, which is ad copy and site links, definitely go for it and then see how that works for you.
Right, on to key takeaway number 3, reviewing competition, which is going to be exceptionally important generally throughout the year, but ever more so at highly seasonal periods. Typically, this time of year, advertisers are dealing with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then lead up to Christmas. What can we do about that? Well, I'm not quite advocating for completely copying competitors or competition, but it's important that everyone is aware of the kind of changes in strategies which may come present as a result of these volatile periods. And there's a few ways that we can identify trends within our competitors by reviewing some interesting reports on both Google and also Microsoft, but also on Meta too. So the main function on Google would be the Auction Insights report. And typically we'd be looking at this week to week anyway throughout the year. But as I kind of say, that volatility that comes with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, etc., it's so important to be looking at that ever more so as you kind of progress through your Christmas campaign. So we've put together a bit of a mock here of what a kind of output, once you exported the data into Excel, what that can look like. And as you can see here, there's a lot going on. Picking out a few advertisers here. Advertiser 2 indicated there in purple. You can see that there's a trend where their impression share, which typically is the key metric to be looking at when it comes to Auction Insights, really drops off on the weekend periods, which does result in the majority of the other advertisers seeing their impression shares increase in that period. Again, without also understanding the data, there will be a lot of reasons why advertisers might be doing that. It may be business reasons, it also may be performance led, but that's really important to be identifying that to see if you can take advantage of those gaps in the market that comes up from their reduction in presence. Now, the biggest takeaway from the graph, I think, is really advertiser 4, indicated there in red. You can see that they've had the highest impression share of any advertiser through the period, but that really drops off really quite early on in the month, probably way too early for them to be happy with. You can see it's gone from around about 95% to essentially 0% without getting through 12 days through the month. So likely what's happened there is that they've blasted through their budget and they don't have any left to spend through the Christmas period, which is a worst case scenario for most advertisers there. So you definitely don't want to be doing that. And finally, advertiser 3 there, indicated there in blue. So you can see that in comparison with advertiser 1 are probably the most stable of any of the competitors within the auction. However, potentially in a last ditch effort to kind of get sales through the final days of the kind of Christmas period before those key delivery cutoffs come in, you can see that they've actually pushed their presence, aiming to kind of capture more click volume and click share to try and maximize their results from the Christmas period. And it's definitely important for all these different trends that can happen in any auction. It's important to be on top of that and making business and campaign changes as a result of what you're seeing in auctions. That covers Google, but the same does apply to Meta. You don't quite get the insight of exactly what's going on, but it's always good to review what's happening within competition. And we can do this through Meta's ad library, and you can get some nice details to see what other competitors in your vertical are operating over the period. You can search for any advertiser. We've done an example for John Lewis and Partners here, and you can get an output of what they're running. So you can actually see, obviously, very, very kind of creative, focused platform Meta, but there's some few insights here. You can see what they're running and when they're running it and kind of how that's deployed. Just in this next slide here, you're given a start date, so you can see how often they're refreshing content. So if you are reviewing the ad library for your competitors often, you can see exactly when new messaging is being implemented and kind of adopting a similar approach if needed. You can also see where the ad's been shown. You can see here it's on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger as the kind of key platforms there. It's got dynamic ad creation. So again, John Lewis are turning part of the creative over to have Meta develop an ad which it thinks that the end user is going to be most likely to engage with, depending on the bidding strategy of the campaign. And finally, what's probably the most useful part of this is actually you can see that there at the bottom, the 3 ads use this creative and text. So again, what that is essentially saying is that there's the same ads, but it's essentially being applied against 3 audiences there. So you can't quite get the details of what's in those audiences, but you can see that they are looking to split test that across multiple different audiences as part of their strategy. Maybe it's something that you take on board with your own advertising strategies and see if you can replicate that into your Christmas strategy.
The next is key takeaway 4. So seasonality adjustments. Changing seasons, definitely one to consider. Your business may or may not be impacted by this, but if you are, definitely one to consider adopting across either Google Ads or Bing Ads. In the first example here on the screenshot on the right-hand side, we have a seasonality adjustment within Google Ads. So it's fairly easy to find. However, there are a few settings you need to consider in order to apply it as well. So it is a tool that you want to use, as I mentioned, during seasonal events. Again, it is recommended to have it for maybe 1 to 7 days. Anything longer than that is probably not going to have as much an impact as you'd like it to have, but it is to anticipate a shift in conversion rates and demand. So for example, Black Friday, you could have scheduled a seasonal adjustment ahead of time, planned for the Friday, for the Saturday, Sunday, and then Cyber Monday. If you do expect conversion rates to continue to be at the higher rate in the days after, that's more than fine. Let that run for a bit. But like I mentioned, 1 to 7 days is probably the sweet spot for this type of tool. And once the seasonal adjustment ends, so again, quite important to have the start time and end time for anything you're doing over the festive period, but make sure that you end it on time. And then the smart bidding strategies will quote unquote revert back to normal, essentially to non-event behavior. Like with Black Friday, there should have been an expected or anticipated significant rise in conversion rates and demand, of which hopefully was planned for. If you don't plan for it, then there are certain issues off the back of that. If you blast your budget, you over deliver and things like that. So definitely best to avoid that as much as you can. The next screenshot here is just with Bing. Again, Bing is probably Google's forgotten brother, so to speak, which is the platform is basically a carbon copy like for like of Google Ads. So whatever Google does, Bing tends to replicate, make it as easy for the advertiser to import campaigns, run activity on Bing, on Microsoft advertising. But it also allows you to use seasonal adjustments. So if you are expecting a rise in conversion rates demand across Google Ads or just in general for your business, definitely consider Bing if you're on Bing, because it can be something you can best capitalize on and get the most out of that over the period. So again, the key takeaways for this point are 1 to 7 days, like I mentioned, the sweet spot. Black Friday is a good example for where we could see these sort of shifts to take place. So make sure you have something set up for Christmas and the days leading up, potentially if you're an e-commerce business, prior to the delivery cutoff date. There could be a sense of urgency, last minute gift buying. So definitely want to capitalize on, definitely want to have enough budget available for that period. But then, like I said, 1 to 7 days, sweet spots.
So the final takeaway, end on time, which has been a recurring theme from both Logan and myself's points through the webinar today. And it is so important to end on time. And there's going to be a few reasons we'll cover just now of exactly why that is. So in my personal opinion, good seasonal PPC campaigns end exactly when they're meant to. And there's no reason why they shouldn't. PPC advisors have got the most control when it comes to pausing or reactivating or changing things. So it's very important to be proactive there. There's no point in running an incredibly successful campaign only for you to throw away the lion's share of the the good effort you've put in over the course of potentially up to 3 months running a Christmas campaign, and could really damper overall performance there. So I'm going to help you ensure that that is not the case. You don't want to be a sad Santa come the end of this. So yeah, and there's 3 main considerations which we're wanting to address today, which hopefully should help you run really profitable and successful PPC campaigns. So those are delivery date cutoffs, product stock and churn rate, and finally messaging, all which are very important in terms of strategy this time of year. As we've kind of mentioned, delivery cutoff dates are very important for digital marketers to consider, particularly PPC. Typically those tend to fall around about the 20th, 21st now, unless you're Amazon, of course, with Prime. It'd be fantastic to deliver it up to Christmas Eve. But, from experience, it is likely that you're wanting to either pause campaigns completely, potentially, or certainly change the way they approach the campaigns, or round down to potentially running brand-only search ads. Demand will still be high because people, I'm guilty of that myself sometimes, of having last-minute Christmas presents to get. But you can't, as a website or e-commerce business, guarantee Christmas delivery. So you really shouldn't be there from a PPC perspective. You're still going to likely get that traffic coming from direct or email potentially, or SEO perhaps. But for you to be paying for that traffic seems a little extreme. So unless you can convert that traffic, you really shouldn't be paying for it. And that's just like general rule of PPC, but ever more so during seasonal periods. On to the second point, the biggest one, which I absolutely love when it comes to running PPC campaigns, is product stock and churn rate. You can make better decision makings if you have got some sort of control over both. So you should hopefully know how much product stock you've got, and you should hopefully know how many products you're selling every single day as well. And so let's look at a little example of how this can be factored into a PPC strategy. So the business is currently selling 100 units of that toy, 35 of them coming from PPC. Very quickly, you can do the maths that this toy is in high demand and it is going to sell out prior to Christmas. So let's look at what Laura can do to really maximize the impact of her campaign. So with the notion of profitability, you could look to, run PPC campaigns until the toy sells out across website, and then turn off advertising to prevent any wasted spend from the product. Again, that's just good PPC, ever more so when you've got a product that is soon to be out of stock and you're not expecting a delivery of new stock until, sometime in the new year, this time of year. So that would be a good approach, but Laura is quite a savvy marketer. She looks to have a different approach with that. So let's look at what she can do here. So Laura, let's say a very smart and savvy marketer, calculates that non-PPC sales a day, that accounts to 65 units. That will accumulate for 910 units, leaving only 290 that need to be sold by PPC. So actually through calculation, Laura decides that she can actually run the PPC only for around about 8.5 of those days, and actually provide a saving for the remaining days that would equate to a saving 5.7 days of advertising spend versus 2. So again, whilst it is just an example of saving 3 days of spend on one toy, if you're an advertiser with several thousand products in your inventory, if you're applying a sort of kind of algorithm in terms of bid modeling on that, you can provide a significant cost saving across the inventory, which I'm sure when it comes to profitability will have a massive impact on there. So it's really important if you can give up those sales and only know what you need from PPC, and the rest will come via other marketing channels. It's really important you're considering that as part of your strategy. And again, whilst this example is fake, the strategy is real. So again, if you apply this model to any sort of limited stock, and it doesn't need to be seasonality, but given that there will be massive spikes demand coming up in these coming weeks ahead of Christmas, it's really important for advertisers to be considering that. So that saved media spend there can be reinvested into other PPC campaigns for more brand awareness or more product sales, and help other parts of the business that need that support. So very vital there. You should be doing that year round perhaps, but ever more so when there is high demand. So definitely be applying that. And finally, and this is probably an overlooked one when it comes to messaging. So we've spoken about product cutoffs in terms of online and whatnot. If you are in a business that does have brick and mortar stores, you can look to adapt copy and messaging to really change your strategy there. So if a product does run out of stock online, it's not the kind of be all and end all. You still can advertise, but it's important that the advertising copy and strategy of that product is adapted to reflect this. So is click and collect available? Can the copy or landing page be updated to drive store visits perhaps? It's really important that that strategy is updated to target PPC ads close to stores as well. So if you're looking to advertise around the UK perhaps, If you're saying, we actually can't sell this product to someone who lives 100 miles from our closest store, it's too much of an ask for them to drive a 200-mile round trip for a product. Let's maybe only bid to users within 10 miles or 20 miles, for example, who are much more likely to visit the store and still have the opportunity to purchase that product. You obviously will know within your own strategy of what that implies, of how that applies to your business. So again, just factoring that into your kind of decision making there can really lead to kind of maximizing results through the period. That covers our 5 top tips for today. So our first question is, how can I know if demand is up or down year on year? So that's a great question. I think that probably the 2 factors or 2 metrics that I would be looking at would be total number of impressions, are they up or down? And also your impression share. And also, you probably have a third thing you need to consider with that as well, is your campaign mix year on year. If you're comparing something year on year, it has to be apples to apples or oranges to oranges. If you're kind of looking at, changing in keyword structures, which has been a big thing, again, incorporating the way that Google's kind of query matching, you may have looked to combine match types into their own campaign, leveraging maybe a kind of change in advertising strategy in terms of bidding. There's lots of factors there which can kind of really complicate that, but I think the 2 metrics to look at is impressions. So if they're up or down, if they're up, typically means that there's probably more demand out there, more search volume, but then also impression share. So of the total number of impressions that are out there, how many are you getting as a percentage? So definitely look at both of them in tandem, and they should point you in the right direction to get a feel of overall market sizes up or down year on year. And then what you do with that is up to you, I guess. So Logan, maybe one for you perhaps. So how would you protect yourself from capped budgets for spend pacing during high demand periods? And would you let those budgets be capped?
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's a great question as well. Obviously, an important one to consider. I mean, we've been ramming home the point, not blasting through your budget. So if you do have limited budget available for that period, you may have to have capped budgets, which is not a great position to be in, but there's a number of factors which contribute towards that. So let's say you are capped by budget. How do you protect yourself from that? I'd say the first thing to do would be try lowering your bids. If it's on search or shopping, try and get more clicks through for a cheaper cost. That's probably going to be one of the more important things. I'd say if you are anticipating being capped by budget, don't front weight the budget. Start off at the lower end. See what your impression share looks like. See where your CPCs look like. Are you seeing high competition? If you have to end up paying the higher CPC to get that traffic to the site, to get that quality traffic to the site and get those sales through, then that might have to be the route you go down. But if you want to test out lowering CPCs and getting cheaper cost traffic to the website, and you're still getting the sales and you're getting your ROAS, you're getting your revenue through, and you're getting that profitability through the value, then definitely test that out initially. And then if you do need to just be paying a high CPC, be capped, then that's where you're going to have to go down. But there are other techniques you can use. I mean, one good tool you can use is the ad schedule in Google Ads or in Bing, where you can bid up or down on specific days of the week or periods throughout the day. So if you are anticipating having very limited budget, then you should definitely focus your budget on the periods you believe or historically have performed well for your business. So if that is from the periods of midnight to 7, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., you historically don't have many sales, your revenue is not great, the ROAS is not great, ROI is not great, then that would be an argument for setting a high negative bid adjustment across those hours. So in essence, if you have a £1 bid and you have a minus, 60, 70% negative bid adjustment on that, you're not going to be paying that much for the traffic. You also can exclude that period, so you don't appear at all for that period, but we're always tend to recommend appearing, even if it's very minimal spend and budget, especially if you think about the platforms of a stop start. In some cases, we have seen some businesses, it just takes that much longer to get off the ground. You can see it following weekends if there's massive reductions and you're increasing it back up. So it's just one to be aware of and be careful of. But as I mentioned, there are a few different solutions you can take on to ensure that if you are capped for any given reason, there are workarounds to try and navigate that over the period as well.
Absolutely. When would you expect traffic levels to decline? So it's probably one that is probably different for every single person. I think it really depends on the product. We do see that B2C really goes up to those delivery cutoff dates over the cutoff date because the demand is still there for products. Over Christmas as well is a weird one because, again, if I give you a gift and then maybe you show it off to your friends, the search volume is still there, but the intent is very, very different there. So it's one to really bear in mind over the kind of core Christmas period where families and friends are getting together and kind of sharing gifts on Instagram and other kind of socials of, here's what Santa got me for Christmas. It's important the search volume is there, but the intent from a week ago is completely different.
So yeah, just building on that, it's a good point you make, that if search volume is going to be there, the intent's not there, but there's definitely a case to remain present. Maybe not necessarily at the £1,000 spend per day, but maybe even like 100, 200 pounds or less, but just remain present, so that if you do get some of these searches of people who may be in the researching phase or consideration phase, but not necessarily the purchasing phase, that you capture that click, your brand and your business is in their minds, they're thinking about it. And then what you can do is then remarket to them later down the line if they have been to the website or they were searching your business. So perfect world scenario would be we have maximum budget throughout the whole period. We never decrease, but that's not the case. But there is an argument for considering still being active or present to some extent. If it's over Christmas, especially with the 26 onwards, we should maybe see, depends on industry, of course, but a gradual increase in search volume as users are exiting that holiday period and getting back into the groove for the new year.
Yeah, I think again we've kind of touched on kind of B2C. I think B2B, again, different kettle of fish. I think that looking at the dates this year, I think there's really that kind of week before Christmas is the way it falls this year. It could be that a lot of businesses are in really core until maybe the 16th perhaps, and then there could be a drop off. Again, it's always an interesting one that we have with clients is that there is still that opportunity over the kind of holiday period where people are at home, they do have more time on their hands, they may be reviewing stuff, getting their kind of themselves and their mind right for heading into the new year, the new year, new me kind of mentality. So there may be a lot of kind of opportunity over that period. People will still be on LinkedIn, they'll still be on socials, and there's still the need for the brand awareness there. So it's important to consider that as part of any kind of strategy there, that even if it's not a buy now mentality mode, users will still be in that consideration period for them coming back into the new year and wanting to kind of really ramp up strategies and whatnot for the new year. So important to consider that over the holiday period as well.
Exactly. Cool.
So thank you so much for everyone for joining. Hope you have taken away a few things from this today that you can go and apply in your own campaigns. Please follow Clean Digital on our socials and LinkedIn. Let Logan and I know if any of the tips that we've gave you today has had impact on your campaigns. We really hope that is the case. And without anything else, from myself and Logan, from the entire team at Clean Digital, we hope you have a fantastic holiday season with loved ones, a great Christmas, and a very happy new year when it comes. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.